In this video we're going to install an outside tap, often called a bib tap. You can install one of these on the hot or the cold water. A lot of people install them on the cold water, use them for pressure washers or watering the garden, etc. Or you can use a hot one, which is useful if you need to wash pets or if you need to fill a swimming pool up for kids or a paddling pool, etc. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to put that through the wall of the property, and then on this side we're going to put an elbow, and I am using push fit for this because I don't have a lot of fittings at the minute, and these are the quickest and the easiest to use. I'll then push that onto there, and then we're going to cut into the existing hot water, and we're going to use a T for that, and then we'll T straight into this part. So this is a hose union, and that has the 1/2 inch BSP internal fitting, and you can screw a stop tap straight into that. Now I highly recommend getting one of these. They are so much better than using a back plate like that. If you use a back plate like that, you have to have the pipe exposed on the outside of the property. Not only that, it's only fixed by 2 screws, which aren't even countersunk, and also look at the depth of that. If you actually get that stop tap and try to screw that into there, it actually bottoms out before it goes all the way home. So I would highly recommend using one of these. I've picked this up from Screwfix. This one is 360mm long, which will do most modern houses. You can also get them 450mm long, and you can even get some that are 600mm long for really thick walls. Basically, I'm going to drill a hole through the wall using that 10mm drill bit. I'll then use the 16 and then the 25mm. And then I'm going to use this offcut of John Guest Speed Fit plastic pipe. Push that through the hole, seal it. That gives us a perfect liner. When you're doing this, you do need an isolation valve in the circuit, so I've already put that into that pipe, and I will cut that to the correct length when we get in there. As well as an isolation valve, you're also going to need to put a double check valve in this pipe. That will prevent any water from siphoning back and contaminating the water supply, and it is a water bylaw regulation that you must have a double check valve. The easiest way of installing a double check valve is to get a bib tap like that already contains a double check valve, and you can tell those because they always have that little bolt, that hexagon head underneath there. So that's a normal bib tap without any check valves, and you can see that there's no hexagon head bolt underneath. That is the one with the check valves. Now, the reason why I prefer putting one of these on is because if the check valve goes faulty and the tap stops working, you can simply turn the isolation valve in the pipework, unscrew that, and then screw in a brand new one. So they are very easy to swap over. If you have a double check valve that's in the pipework and it goes faulty, you have to dismantle everything to replace it. Now, I have seen a lot of these stop taps, and you go to them and they're on an angle like that. That's because you wrap these threads with PTFE tape to get a good seal, and then screw that into there and tighten it. And sometimes when you get it tight, it might actually be on an angle like that. So if that happens to you, what you need to do is unscrew it and put a lot more PTFE tape on it until you get it so that it's tight in that position. So we're now on the inside of the property, and we actually want to tee into this pipe, which is the hot water from the boiler. You may want to put the tap on the cold side or the hot side, so it's simply a case of tracing the pipe. Sometimes you'll be doing this and it will be near a tap, so you can quite easily decide whether it's hot or cold water. We can tell this one's hot. If we run the hot tap in the property, this pipe actually gets very warm. So we know that that is definitely the correct pipe. Now, it is a bit congested around here, and we do have quite a bit of pipe work, etc. And there's not a lot of places where you can actually put the hole through the wall. Initially I wanted to put it down there, but on the outside is the pipe for the condensate, and that runs down at an angle on the outside, so I couldn't put it anywhere in this area. So what I've done is I've measured from that pipe there, which is the blow-off valve for the boiler. I've measured 100mm up, and then I've come across in this direction 700mm, and basically that puts us about there where that cross is. Now normally I drill from outside inside, but this time, because of all the wires and pipes and everything around here, I'm actually going to drill from the inside out. In fact, I'm going to move that over a bit because it will make it easier. So I'm going to put it about there. I can now take the measurement from the blow-off valve and take that outside, and we can see roughly where that is going to come out on the outside. To start off with, I'm going to drill through the plaster without hammer action on. Then once I get through the plaster, I will switch the hammer action on. So we're now through the plaster, we can now switch the hammer action on. So now we've drilled through the first skin, we're now hitting the brick on the exterior, and the brick will be approximately 4 inches. So I'm just going to measure that, and when I get to approximately 2.5, 3 inches, I'm actually going to turn off the hammer action, and that way we won't blow the face off the brick outside. So I've now turned the hammer action off. If you do it that way, you guarantee that you don't blow the face off the brick. I'm now going to enlarge the holes, first using the 16mm drill bit, and then secondly using a 25mm drill bit. I've now pushed the scrap piece of pipe through from outside. I'm now going to mark that and then trim that off and push that back in till it's flush, and then we can seal around the hole using silicone. We're now going to do the same on the outside. We're now going to push this through the hole so that it's completely flush on the outside. On the fitting you'll actually see a line just there, and that indicates where the pipe will go to, so we need to cut it at that length. So I can put that alongside there, and then I can mark the pipe for cutting. So I'm starting off with a 4mm drill bit, Once I've drilled the hole, I'm then enlarging that to 5.5 and then I'm using a red wall plug. I've now isolated the water at the main stop tab and I'm now getting ready to cut into this pipe. It's important when we cut into this pipe that we cut into it in the correct position. So what I've done is I've got the engineer square on there and I've pointed that up to the dead centre of the pipe. And then we can put a mark on there. And we know that RT needs to be in the dead centre of that line. We can check that by putting the T in the dead centre where that line is, and we can see that that pipe is absolutely bang on. And I have actually opened the downstairs tap, the hot tap and the cold tap, and I've drained the system down completely. This is actually the lowest part on the system, so when I do cut in there, there's going to be quite a lot of water comes out of there anyway. If you look on the fitting, there is actually a line at each side. And that tells us where we need to do the cut. So we need one cut there and one cut there. So we need to remove that section of copper pipe, deburr it, and then push the T into position. In order to get some movement in the pipe, I'm just going to remove these clips so that we can move this copper pipe that way once it's been cut. I've now got a bucket for the water. Then I've got a tray that will fit under there nicely. I'm now going to take the pipe slice and we're going to cut into the pipe. And obviously there is going to be water in this because it is the lowest part of the system. There's not a massive amount of water in there, it's just it's the lowest part and it's got a bit of head above it, so it's giving it a little bit of pressure. So now we've done that, we can now do the second cut. We've just got enough room on there to move that out. We now need to deburr both pieces of pipe. So we need to deburr them internally and externally. So they are now deburred, they're nice and smooth internally and externally. I'm now going to take the push fit fitting, ensuring that it's in the open position, like so. That enables the collets to be pushed in. Once we've pushed the pipes in there at both sides, we can then twist that and that will actually lock it into position. They are both firmly in. So I've got this piece of pipe made up already, and again this is made up from scrap pieces of pipe that I had lying about. I've put an isolation valve on there so that we can isolate it. And of course we don't need the double check valve because that is built into the stop tap. So I'm now going to put that into position. And I can use the marks on the fittings to ensure that I mark it at the exact correct length. I can now take the pipe slice. Can insert that in there and then rotate it in the correct direction. And it cuts that in a matter of seconds. I've actually deburred the other end already, just need to deburr that end. You can get some kits for installing outside taps that use a hose and a self-cutting tap, but they do actually reduce the flow, and I would not recommend one. If you can't move your pipe and it's completely rigid, you will have to use a slip coupling, and I have done a video on slip couplings. I'll put a link to that video in the description. So I'm now just going to nip outside and I'm just going to move that out of the way, and then we'll ensure we've got the isolation valve going the correct way, like so. So we can now put that onto the top of there and we can lock that. So that is now ready. So we can just push that into the T, and then we can push that through the wall from outside. We can now take that, push that behind that pipe and insert it into the T. So that is now pushed all the way in there. We can now lock that. At this point you need a helper to push the pipe through the wall. I'm going to hold the fitting at this end, and then I can guide the pipe in and we can ensure that goes all the way in. I've now turned the water back on. All the joints are tightened up, and before I fit the tap I'm actually just going to open this isolation valve, and if there's any copper bits in there we'll actually flush them out before we put the tap on. Now take the tap, the one with the 2 check valves in it. I'm going to hold that in my left hand, get the PTFE tape, and wrap that around. Now there are some people that say you only need 2 wraps, but I always put quite a few more than that on, and I have to say that in all my years I've never had a leak on any steam pipe or any compressed air pipe or any water pipe. It's also a good idea to fit an outside tap cover, which I have covered in another video. I hope you found this video useful. If you have and you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel.